Hi, this is DebraDanielsen. I'm the host of the Rebel Podcast. We talk about entertainment here, and we talk about issues that could really affect your life. What we're watching on TV with an eye for entertainment, but we're also looking at what's the lesson. Co-host Waylon Carney will join me shortly, and we're going to talk about Teen Mom Next Chapter. Watch part 2, Teen Mom Next Chapter, next. I get it.
Yeah, because that's such an important relationship for everyone, with your mom.
Totally.
So, I mean, to not have that, but have someone step into that role and pick up that baton is great.
And I'm just really happy about that for her. Let's talk about Leah on Teen Mom Next Chapter. Her dad was having a colonoscopy because he was recently diagnosed with kidney cancer. So they wanted to see if the cancer had spread further from the kidneys into the colon and so forth. They did that. They went ahead and found Leah's dad, Gary, is fine. It did not spread. And he was very grateful. And you can imagine, because he's had addiction problems in the past, neglected himself and really kind of ignored everything to do with health and making good choices that way. It showed that Leah and her dad came out, the tumor was gone. It was all good news, and they were really happy, and they moved forward together. So I was really happy for them. And it really made me think how lucky it is sometimes we get a second chance and never ever take that for granted. So on episode 23, Cheyenne is trying to get pregnant. So her and her husband go to the doctor. They haven't been having luck at getting pregnant, and nobody understands what's going on because they've been doing everything possible. This was really news to me. I didn't know this before. It seems as though they smoke weed. Weed has an effect on getting pregnant. It has an effect on sperm. They did a test. They said Cheyenne has beautiful, everything's good with her, the ovaries, the eggs, everything's fabulous, no problem. Plenty of eggs, very healthy. So they come back to the husband, and he's like, yeah, I got the greatest sperm. And so anyway, now the doctor says, look, there's a problem. Your sperm are sluggish. They're lazy. And smoking weed can do that. I'm like, what?
Stoner sperm.
Yeah, can you believe that? I mean, nobody
Yeah.
ever talks about that, right? They had to make a pact that they weren't going to do any weed kind of therapy, like relaxation, meditation stuff, right? They were just going to take a break from weed for a while to wake up the sperm, and then hopefully they'll get pregnant. So I think that's great. Thank you for the education. I had no idea.
That's news to me.
I know, it's like crazy. The thing that I think is really interesting is Mackenzie. I love her story, and they've been trying so hard to get pregnant. Mackenzie and her husband are doing in vitro, which is a real commitment, both financially and physically. So they did the in vitro after, of course, Mackenzie had to go through making sure all of her blood work was fine because of her diabetes, and it was, and then started taking the shots. The hormonal changes in those shots are just horrible. After that, they showed her getting the in vitro implant done, which could be very scary. And now, the cliffhanger was in a couple of weeks, they'll come back. They'll see if the implant is viable. Fingers crossed, everything's going to go well. Beautiful. I don't know if it's going to be a gymnast or a cheerleader or what. But we'll have a new beautiful baby on the way. How's that?
Yes. Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. Now, I want to take up something here with Caitlin Tyler Baltiera. On the one hand, I just really don't understand why there's been such a resentment or hatefulness from Caitlin and Tyler against Brandon and Teresa, who adopted their oldest daughter. I guess I don't understand that. When you look at it from the perspective of the adoptive parents, and you've got a precious child over here, and you're trying to make sure that she's fine and she's protected and she's sheltered from influences that you don't like. So, for example, and this is really amazing, this is clearly written in the Ashley. If you want to check your facts, the Ashley is a very reputable source of reality TV reporting. You can go in there and you can read about it because she does her research. Tyler said that he made $100,000 on OnlyFans. He appeared in one of those with a thong. Maybe that's something Brandon and Teresa don't want their daughter understanding, looking at, or maybe because of that, they developed a fear of her being safe. I don't know. I'm not putting words
Yeah.
in anybody's mouth. Remember that old law of physics? For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction.
Reaction.
I think that might play into it. The fact that Butch is perpetually either in jail or in prison, that there's strong substance abuse background on both sides of
Mhm.
Kate and Ty, right? And I'm not saying anything bad because Kate and Ty have done a very excellent job of overcoming those background problems.
Yeah.
I love that. Other forces at play here that I wish Caitlin and Ty would step back and admit that every parent has a legitimate right to have a concern over what their child is exposed to.
I wonder if it would have been different. I mean, and who knows how this played out, but I wonder if he would have maybe asked them how they felt about it before he did it, or if that will have any effect over his, relationship with his daughter. At the end of the day, and maybe this is just from being in Palm Springs for a while, but I'm like, being in a thong isn't the worst thing in the world, but
So,
because he wasn't doing like hardcore porn or anything like that, it was just, and he wasn't even naked from what I understand. It's not the worst thing, but apparently they were uncomfortable with it.
yeah.
So yeah, it would have been all this would have been prevented if you just would have had a conversation with him about, are you comfortable with this? Is that, something that's going to jeopardize my relationship with you and with my daughter,
Mhm.
and maybe he just never thought to do that.
Yes. And maybe he felt like he didn't need to check in, you know.
Yeah.
And so he's going on a crusade. It sounds like he's blaming the entire system, the adoption system, as being bad or being less than fully honest about what the definition of an open adoption is or the intentions. It's almost like he's accusing all of the adults that were involved with this at the time of steering them in the wrong way, leading them to a conclusion that wasn't really fully open on the adoption. But
Yeah.
listen, if you feel like your child might be in danger because Caitlin encouraged Tyler to go on OnlyFans, obviously Teresa and Brandon don't live that way. They live much differently. And maybe because their adopted daughter, Carly, doesn't feel safe, or maybe they don't want their daughter being exposed to things that, at the age of 16, she doesn't understand or know about.
Well, and I think from what I read in that article, it was Caitlin said she didn't want to work. So if he did OnlyFans, they could make enough money so that she wouldn't have to work, which is also kind of, if you can figure it out how to not work, that's great, but also maybe not the best mindset to then impart to your kids that sell your body or whatever, or get someone else to do things that maybe, I don't know, just like questionable things so that you don't have to work. That's not really the best like philosophy for how to live your life and how to, be a
Right.
productive person. So I'm sure they probably just didn't want her exposed to, or that's what I would, as a parent, that's what I would be concerned about is doesn't want to work and will get someone else to do something so that they don't have to.
And let's take the easy way out.
Yeah. It's
Damn,
just,
damn what anybody else thinks or how they feel because, hey, they don't have a right to anything.
Right. And also affect somebody else's reputation. And you don't realize, and I'm sure in your experience um with your daughter, you don't realize how something like that then becomes the focus of what the rest of your life is,
Right.
where people only see you in that way. And every time your name is mentioned, it's then star of blah 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 movie that is not,
Right.
a title that I want to repeat here, or performer on OnlyFans or whatever. That then becomes, and right or wrong, no judgments on people who do adult things, but that's also, it does have a big effect on your life. And reality TV isn't forever, so
Right.
if that's what you then end up having to do just to support yourself, maybe that's not the route that you even wanted to go down.
Right. Or take a minute, take a beat. How will this affect Carly? How will this affect my daughters? Here's a man with daughters.
He has other kids, so it's, I don't know. It's a complex issue. I understand the allure of being able to make money just by taking pictures of yourself and things like that, but it does have a big effect on your life, and it's permanent. It's on the internet. So
Right. And let me tell you, working on MTV, you're not ready to go to the soup line. You're paid well. So you can say, okay, we want Tyler to go over here because we got a tax problem and we need 100 grand to help us bail out. All right, well, but could he have done something a little bit more stand-up, reputable? I mean, even Farrah's doing comedy. I just think he's talented enough to have better choices for him to express and lead and be an example other than to go on OnlyFans. That's all.
yeah, I agree. I mean, for me personally, I would have loved to have known because I'm a tall guy and he's a tall guy, I think.
Mhm.
I'd like to know how he got so big because he's like super muscular
Right.
now, and that's really hard when you're over 6 feet
Yeah,
tall.
he
Because
could he could do videos or he could sign up with an agency to talk about the products he's using.
yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, there's a lot of people that'd be interested in that. Me, I
Oh,
would be one of them.
definitely.
So,
Definitely. Yeah.
yeah.
Thank you. So that's a good point. Now, the other Ashley article that, of course, I found kind of interesting is that she's reporting on Farah, who claims to have spent $1 million on her body, having various plastic surgeries, different procedures done. She talks about butt injections, vaginal rejuvenation, skin tightening. She's
Her
talking about
lips.
plastic surgery and cosmetic
Yeah.
procedures that she has had done, for the breast augmentations and chin implants, all kinds of things. So she's got a cute little, again, snarkism here, picture. Yes, believe it or not, I actually paid to have my mouth look like this per law. So, if you if you haven't read the Ashley articles, if you don't know about how she covers all these reality TV shows and characters, believe me, you should check it out. She's on X, and you can definitely Google her and find her pretty quickly. It's the Ashley.
Yeah, it's they're really entertaining articles. They're not just there's information in there, but they're really funny too.
So I'm just gonna read one of the quotes that the Ashley has here. Farrah then used her 50K mouth to spew out some of her signature Farrah speak, word salad. Self-worth, self-investment, self-value, that's what I stand for, she said. Go divine femininity. As for how much she spends on surgeries and procedures done on her body, Farrah claims she has $1 million body and she has no plans to stop the surgeries now. I would love an invasive surgery next. Farrah gushed during the interview, and she was talking about like her next surgery, and we won't get into that here. But the Ashley goes really in depth so that you can get all your questions answered. And the Ashley does feature me in in some pictures and some snarky remarks. And believe me, they're hilarious and I love them.
Have you met the Ashley? Have you interviewed with her before, or
Oh
has she
yeah,
interviewed you?
yes,
Yeah.
yes. And she's a very intelligent person and her team is good. They are excellent writers. But here's the thing, they have integrity. They don't make stuff up just to sell magazine articles. They do, I think, in my opinion, one of the best jobs I've ever seen in my life at reporting. The other thing that would be interesting to our listeners and viewers of our podcast, Waylon, wanted to take a minute just to read, so you can comment on the Ashley articles, which is good. It's kind of like a combination of here's a news flash and now you can comment on it. Kind of like a social media platform. All right. So here's one regarding Farah's plastic surgeries. All right. And Megan says preventative. What for? Preventing her body from decomposing? She'll need to be buried in a recycle bin at this rate. So some of these are kind of funny, and they're kind of like snarkism right back, right?
Oh yeah, for
So
sure.
they're a little bit entertaining. Some can be mean though, and we don't like that. But there is creativity out there in the audience. So more power to
Yeah.
people. And then Matt says, blow up blank dolls don't need to look perfect. They just need to get the job done.
Oh my God.
And then we'll read a couple more. Let's see here. Oh, here we go. This one. This is called, let's see, this is Hust Law. I can no longer tell the difference between Farah, Kale, and Jocelyn. Everybody's having plastic surgery. And Chelsea, not a fan, says, and Chelsea, she looks so much like Farah to me with all that she has had done. Here's one last comment, and then we're done with this. Okay, so Hustla also said, yeah, agreed. Regarding Chelsea, they all look like Cher, who is in her late 70s. So there's all kinds of good stuff over on the Ashley. There's also, I want to make mention, there's a cool article that was published recently on LinkedIn, uh, basically talking about the Teen Mom franchise, 16 and Pregnant. And it was kind of like a salute to that franchise, which this year turned 16, just like the kids that are on the show. And all of the lives that it has touched around the world and how it had first sharing, it had set precedents. And I think the show has done an amazing job. And I'm grateful for the opportunity that I've had to touch a lot of lives. And every single day, I have anywhere between 5 to 15 people come up to me and talk to me about how's your life going? Where are you at now? Right? Thank you for sharing your story. Here's what I got going on in my life. It's amazing how this program resonates with so many people that are going through the same issues. And it kind
Yeah.
of makes you feel like you're not alone. You're not
Mhm.
going crazy. If somebody in your family is having mental health issues, you're still okay. And how do we deal with these things effectively to build things better and make things better?
Yeah, I think it's beyond that too. It's also done so much to prevent um, teenage pregnancy and
Yes,
to show the reality of what that looks like and how that affects the rest of your life. And it's been such, I think, just such an important show.
it
It's
has been.
really it's made huge changes in society, which
Yes.
I think is really incredible for a TV show that started in teenagers' bedrooms and stuff. It's just
Right.
it's
Or in their parents' house in their bedrooms, like like here in our upstairs bedroom, right?
yeah, right. But I mean it's incredible what's happened with it.
Yes. And the only thing that I feel is missing from the story is because, and why do I say this? Because I'm going through it personally, but I also, all these people that come to me on a daily basis, and I mean, they're passionate, they're emotional, they're loud, okay? And they're saying, we don't get to see our grandchildren. My kids don't talk to me, or one thing and another. That's a whole other program that I would like to see MTV take on because I think that part of the human condition and that part of the story that people are facing now more so than ever because people are living longer and they need help navigating through all of this stuff. I really feel that that's missing. I feel that there's a whole segment of the population that grew up on MTV, watching music videos, learning about Michael Jackson, all this stuff. They're out there, they're still wanting to watch MTV, but they kind of gave up because their stories aren't being covered to the extent that they need to be covered.
Right. I agree with that. But I agree with you. I think it would be, and especially with your story where, and I know there are other parents of some of the girls that were on Teen Mom that have the same thing happen to them where they're alienated from their grandchildren and from their children. I think it would be really interesting to cover that and see how that happens and how you deal with that because that's a very
Right,
difficult thing. It's like a part of your heart is missing that
right.
you could explain it better than I can because I haven't been through it, obviously, but I just, I think it'd be really interesting to see. And I think a lot of people, I mean, I've been with you when people have come up to you and told you that they're going through the same thing,
Yes.
and there's so many people I think that are in the same situation. And it's like such a common thing right now, I think, because people are, on the internet, it's always like somebody isn't um, if you feel like somebody's toxic or something, just walk away from them. You don't need that in your life or whatever. Well, why not just deal with that and maybe, realize that it's not always somebody else that's toxic. You might be, or you might
Right.
just not know how to deal with somebody who doesn't agree with you all the time,
And
or
that's
you might have a
why
mental illness.
Yeah, and that's why Jade's story to me is so touching because it can be the parent having the problem, it could be the child having the problem, but there's
Hmm.
a mental health issue somewhere that's causing the addiction or that's causing the total disarray of the entire family. When a person has a mental health issue, it decouples the entire family. It's not
Yeah,
just an isolated, oh, that person's bad, let's kick them off the island and let's just keep going forward. You can't really do that. But when you do make that kind of a decision, guess what? The fallout is huge. It affects the entire family. When
yeah,
I grew up mainly with my grandparents on both sides. I knew I was loved. I knew I was cared for. I knew I was cherished. I knew we didn't have much. I knew that. But I knew then that my mom and dad worked as hard as they could. They did the best they could. I don't fault them for anything. I love them both dearly. But I realized at a young age I had to make decisions for myself. And I just wish that MTV could cover and capture when that kind of thing happens in a family, how a family can stop and deal with that. But if you can't deal with it, how you have to navigate because you got to move forward or otherwise you die on the vine. But it
yeah.
affects my granddaughter severely and it affects, our relationship because I haven't seen my granddaughter in 4 years. So the last time I saw her, she was 12 and not having a great day. And so, we all need guidance, I think. And you can sit in a room, you can sit with a therapist, and then you feel all alone. You don't realize how many thousands or hundreds of thousands of people are dealing with the same problem. But I can tell you from personal experience because I get a lot of human interaction on that and a lot of hugs. And I got to say to all of my fans, thank you. You're precious, you're beautiful, and so encouraging. And
Yeah, people are so supportive of you in that way. I mean, because there's so many people going through the same thing, and I think everyone's, the people that are your fans have seen what you've dealt with, and the treatment of you that wasn't always fair and not always kind, and that I think this is just another thing that they're seeing that is really bad. Especially, I mean, your relationship wasn't with your granddaughter wasn't um just like a norm I wouldn't want to say a normal grandmother and grandchild relationship, but she lived with you, and
yes,
you were very much involved in her
raising her.
life.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's not like you were just like going over there on Sundays and seeing her or something. You were very involved and a very good grandmother.
And I love
So
her
it's
dearly.
yeah, so
Sophia
it's
is
a
an amazing young woman, and she deserves the right to have her own platform on MTV to tell her story as well. And she enjoyed, like all the children, when we would record, the children would be together with the Wranglers and they would be playing and having snacks and doing fun things, right? So I really would like to see her be able to do something like that.
yeah, because she seems to really want that.
Yeah,
She seems to, be really willing to be out there and say what she thinks, and
yeah.
have people see her. So I think it would be interesting.
And despite some of the things I've heard and read recently, that's been said, I didn't force anybody to go on MTV, and I didn't force anybody to do a show that they didn't want to do.
Yeah, that story changes a lot, doesn't
I do not.
it? It changes often. There's a lot of
Yeah,
uh,
there's a lot of confusion out there.
fuzzy memories about
Fuzzy, fuzzy. But here's the
yeah.
beautiful thing. Every single thing that we have gone through has been recorded on MTV and it's there. So when Sophia wants to, or when Leah wants to, or anybody else, Carly, right? Anybody, Bentley, they can go back and they can take a look.
Yeah. And a actually seeing what happened rather than just hearing what happened
Yeah.
from one side is probably going to be invaluable
And it's a
for
gift.
them.
I think it's a
It
gift.
is.
And I really wish that there was some quick, simple answer to some of these problems we face for mental health, physical ailments. And maybe AI is part of that next revolution, right? I don't know. We'll see. Thank you for joining us today. Waylon and I love that you're with us. And please share all of your comments and thoughts with us. Share the program, like, subscribe, and go
Go
and
and
glow and grow too, right?
yes, yes, definitely.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Keep up to date with the Ashley's Reality Roundup. We love it when you like, subscribe, and share. Thanks.